Hey, good day. Welcome to the first inaugural episode of the podcast Bible Guys. I am Brian and my co host, Rich. Uh,
Hello.
yeah, I almost said down in Oklahoma. I guess it's technically down and over
Yeah,
compared to where I'm at
correct.
on the map, being here in Indiana. So, down and over to the left of your map, you'll find Richard Robertson hanging out in his backyard like he does for a lot of our topics here. But yeah, Rich and I talk literally daily. We probably talk to each other as much as we talk to our wives or our kids, maybe even more. Um, we can be talking about a tornado warning that actually happened last night. And a minute and a half later, maybe we're talking about we wonder if people in the prehistoric era ever had dinosaurs as pets. And then we're off on another topic. So we're very random people, but we are Christians. We believe strongly in God and Jesus and the Bible. Um, and we just started talking about just a lot of random stuff. And there are, I think when I was a kid, and Rich, maybe you're the same way, but we grew up in similar households. Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. Youth group events, the summer camps, and all that kind of stuff. Um, I think a lot of people, at least back, when you're a kid or a teenager, maybe even in your college years, when you hear the word Bible, Bible study, church, whatever, um, a lot of people have I think, wrong opinion. It sounds boring. And I think back when I was that age, it sounded boring. Um, the Bible is insanely crazy and entertaining.
Not boring. It's insanely not
Um,
boring.
yeah, it is. Yes, there is nothing boring about the Bible. I mean, especially the Old Testament. If anyone's listening here and doesn't know really much about the Old Testament, it is wild. I mean, it is there's war, there's violence, there's betrayal, I mean, it's full of sin. There's horrible humans, there's murderers, there's incest, there's um fireballs, there's ghosts, spiritual beings from another dimension, giants. It's just wild. So anyway, we wanted to get this podcast going just to talk to regular dudes. There's nothing special about Rich or I. I mean, maybe our moms may say we're special, but outside
Right.
of that, we're just regular dudes. We watch sports. We have 12-year-old humor that we think we're funny, and we're probably not as funny as we think we are, but we're not going to believe that. But we just want to come on and just talk like regular dudes. In their, well, I almost said mid 40s, but we're upper 40s now, I guess. You
Yeah, yeah,
40?
we're
You
push
48 now? Are you
48,
48?
yeah.
I'm 47. So yeah, we're upper 40s, nearing 50. So yeah, just regular dudes with families and jobs and careers and hobbies and all that. But we just want to talk to regular guys and just talk about scripture and the Bible and the truth behind it. So Rich, go ahead and by the way, Rich is more of my spiritual, I won't say mentor, but like if anytime I'll have a thought, which is usually weird, but I'll have a thought and I'll say, okay, Rich, explain this to me. And he will more than likely know a scripture or a story that correlates with what I'm asking, and it'll answer my question. So I'm more of the I'm more of the random thought, and then Rich will generally have an answer that at least calms me down a bit to make me think, okay, I get that. So my head just doesn't race for the next 2 hours. So,
Yeah.
Rich, go ahead.
Well, I have a degree in biblical literature, so there are some things just over, 48 years of life that we've kinda learned, but what you and I have talked about, even, leading up to doing this podcast, is that when we listen to guys who are extremely smart, and we're smart, like, I'm not saying we're idiots, but we are your average guy. I mean, literally in my fire pit area in my backyard with my cool Virginia creeper vine on my fence back that I've been cultivating for the last 4 years. Um, like I mowed today. I'm gonna plant some flowers later. We're as about as average dudes as you can think about. We're gonna watch college football, we're gonna watch baseball, we're gonna fix stuff around our house. We like hot tubs,
Wait, hold on,
all
hold
that
on,
sort of
hold on. You just said we're going to fix things around the house. I'm
minor
not fixing.
things. You
I'm not
you
fixing
fixed
any.
the wiffle ball field this week.
I build a wiffle ball field because I like it, but like
Exactly.
if something breaks, my wife's getting out her pink tool bag, and that's not a joke. People probably laughed when I said that. That's not a joke. And
YouTube
then
has
she,
helped me fix more things than I used to fix, but generally, if something breaks, I'm pulling out my cell phone and just calling a guy.
yeah,
But I said all that to say we're very average, and so sometimes when I listen to guys who are clearly above average, I'm thinking, okay, I even have an education in this, and I am not understanding the not just the terms you're using, but the way you're explaining it. And so I think there are average guys who, don't want to be seen as the kind of guys who, at least at first in their relationship with God, like, oh, I'm not a wimpy Bible guy or whatever. And just like Brian was saying, the Old Testament is incredible. I mean, it is as good as any, you know, drama that you're gonna, uh, even dragon. I mean, there probably weren't dragons in the Bible, but maybe there were. I don't know. Um, I just think there's a lot of really cool stuff that could be told in a way that guys like us can go a little bit deeper in their faith. Because, this is not something we just readily admit or talk about all the time, but we had periods in our life 15 years ago or whatever where we weren't as deep in our faith as we should have been or would have liked to be. And so now maybe we can talk about some things that can help other people, kind of get past that silly stuff in their life and really dive deeper into the Bible.
yeah, yeah. No, that's good stuff. Um, so I think my dad was a big end times prophecy kind of guy. I've mentioned to you before about the that show Jack Van Impe, and you said you didn't really remember much about that show.
No, I know the name, but that's it. Like you said the name and that immediately registered with me quick enough that, yeah, I've obviously seen it. Probably something that maybe my grandparents watched or something, but
Yeah, it
I
was
was
on,
more of
like,
a
I just remember my brother and I would just wake up on Saturday or Sunday mornings, and my dad would have the TV so loud, probably so we could hear it. But, being uh, if I was, like, 12 and he was 16, so we shared a room, growing up. We had a big bedroom, but it was just one room, and, bed on each side, and I just remember Sunday morning, um, yeah, that intro music drove me absolutely bonkers. Just listening to that, and he had it up so loud, but anyway, so back then, just like anything, when you're not interested in something, you don't allow yourself to become interested in it. Like, you don't, give it a shot, as they say. So, but now that I'm older, I find this kind of stuff fascinating. Um, I went and watched, the movie Disclosure Day. I told you that, which, by the way, did you ever go watch that? Did
haven't
you guys
seen it
watch it
yet.
yet?
Likely this weekend we'll go.
Okay. I'm not here to talk about that movie, really. I'm not gonna share spoilers or anything, but it there's some biblical, how do I say it? There's a biblical angle to the movie. Um, Faith, people questioning their faith. Um, and I'm sure you've heard this stuff before. It's like, okay, are people say, well, they're not aliens, they're demons. They're fallen angels. They're not from planet XYK7 77 million light years away. I heard a guy a couple days ago on a podcast talking about, and I don't remember the scripture exactly, but talking about other dimensions and things like that. He thinks there's just another dimension, and that's where these demons slash aliens, whatever, like, that's maybe that's where these things come from. But it's wild. But um, there was
I
a
think
guy
there's
who talked.
biblical I think there's biblical precedent for that, honestly. You remember when the prophet's servant was coming to him and he was saying, like, we're going to lose this fight, right? Because there's so many enemies around us. And the prophet says, Lord, open his eyes. And the servant sees into what would be described, for all intents and purposes, as another dimension, and he sees this host of fighters who are on the Lord's side, and it was more than the enemy, and he said, "There's more that are for us than are against us," but that was, I mean, in what way we would describe another dimension in regular 2026 dudes in the backyard terms, that's what he looked into and saw another dimension. So I firmly believe that the supernatural, especially for fundamental and conservative Christians, which I would consider myself one, but we try to look at the supernatural and go, well, if we say there is supernatural stuff happening, then God can't be real for some reason. Like, we don't want to believe in anything supernatural, but the Old Testament is full of supernatural stuff. I mean, you remember when Saul goes to the witch at Endor, like, some crazy supernatural stuff happened there. What exactly, we're not 100% sure, but something happened. And so whoever you were listening to, I would agree that there is probably some sort, what we would describe as a different dimension, that how it could even go back to something we've discussed earlier, which I think we should do another segment completely on this, but the sons of God and daughters of men, I believe that the sons of God probably came from this other dimension, which would have been considered fallen angels. Um, and I think that's what people see when they see ghosts or aliens or demons. I mean, I think we know from the universe itself that Earth is so small and so far away from everything else that if there were life on other planets, it would be almost impossible for them to even know we existed. And so the concept of aliens is probably not as likely, just from a sheer mathematics standpoint, as there is something supernatural happening in another dimension, which we would believe would be demonic or angelic.
Yeah. Yeah, that's for sure. Um, we used to always watch, the show Unsolved Mysteries, and it was, I remember, or at least when it was on in its, I would say in its prime, was late '80s, I would say, maybe early '90s, but that's another one, just that music. You hear that music and you see that Robert Stack, just that dude, he had the most intense eye contact. Like, he not only looking at your soul, like, he was, like, touching your soul. Like, it was just so intense when he stared into the camera, and that voice he had and the music, it was such a creepy show. But I remember a lot of, you know, there'd be demonic stuff there. There'd be, sometimes they'd have, like, they talk to a priest about exorcisms, or they talk to people who say they've been abducted and things like that. But yeah, we'll get into stuff like that, just random stuff that, whether it's giants, which that's another crazy thing. A 15-year-old kid, or did they actually give David an age, or they just call him a teenager?
Yeah, he was young. I mean, I think the opinions on that are kind of all over the map. Um, it's likely, yeah, he was late teens probably. Um, and yeah, we can dive into some of the reasons why. And that is kind of the interesting stuff. Well, I think I told you we watched House of David recently, and one of the things I generally don't like about biblical shows is when they take things that are expressly written in the Bible and they kind of change how it happened. And then this show doesn't do that. If you're listening to this and you haven't watched The House of David, I recommend going and watching it because it sticks to the things that are in the Bible.
Is it on
There,
Prime? Is
it
it on
is,
Amazon?
yes. I
Okay.
think it's made by Amazon, weirdly enough. It takes this stuff that's like the things that are specifically said, it says those, it plays those out exactly pretty much like the Bible would say it. I mean, I'm sure someone who's like looking to say, well, Amazon is probably the mark of the beast. And what, like, I'm sure that there are people who could say that they're not in there. Um, but there are definitely people who are things in that movie that are taken from in between the stuff that's written, and those things they embellish a little bit, but I think they do it really well.
Yeah. Well, and I think you have to with, with shows like The Chosen, or Passion of the Christ, things like that. Like there's only so much, material, in a scripture or in, a storyline. Like you have to fill in plots somewhere. You got to fill in something, or, it can't just be word for word because you're not going to have a full story. You're not going to have a background. You're not going to have the atmosphere, the environment, things like that.
So those are the types of things we want to talk about in this podcast, and certainly leave something in the comments if you would like to hear us talk about a regular issue, or an issue that you maybe don't understand or that's interesting to you, but talk about it from a regular guy's point of view. Um, and we would love to hear kind of your comments on what you think we should discuss. But I think we're probably going to be in the Old Testament a lot, knowing kind of our interests, um, and look at things from hopefully a viewpoint that is a little bit different than stuff everybody else has done.
Yep, absolutely. So, all right. Well, thanks for listening. You've been listening to Bible Guys with Rich and Brian, and hopefully we will see you soon.
All right, we're out.